Mycket är sig lik på ytan, men inuti har det skett vissa förändringar när Titleist nu lanserar en ny generation av populära Pro V1-familjen. En tourboll som nu har närmare 25 år på nacken och bibehåller sin ledande position på marknaden. Jag åkte till Boston där Titleist har sin bollfabrik för att träffa två av nyckelpersonerna i teamet bakom Pro V1 och lyssna närmare. Vad har egentligen hänt sedan den föregående versionen av Pro V1?
So new Pro V1 and Pro V1X introduce exactly what golfers have asked us for. We start with tour players, we talk to dedicated golfers, we understand their needs, their wishes, their wants, and the number one thing golfers were telling us is it would be great if you could provide a little bit more spin and control with the irons and wedges. But I don't want to give up anything off the tee. I want to keep my driver spin and I want to keep my driver distance. That's a unique challenge, right? And so the team set off and said, how do we create more spin and control with the irons, but try to disconnect it from the driver? Mike, maybe you can share a little bit about how you went about that, and then I think most importantly, how you ended up getting additional speed along the way.
Right, so as part of that development, we are looking at every piece of the golf ball, and we're going to look at the combination of all the different pieces, and we're going to make changes in all of those areas because there might be more than one way to achieve that goal. We want to figure out what that best way is. And as Jeremy kind of alluded to, every time you make a change, there's that potential that it changes something else in the game that has a negative impact. So part of the art in being a golf ball engineer is understanding those relationships, understanding the levers and kind of the give and take with different changes and how it impacts other areas of your game. We don't want to increase driver spin and wedge spin necessarily if it's going to sacrifice distance. So being able to understand that and have the foresight to create enough prototypes that we have all of our bases covered is the key to the development cycle. And throughout that process, we really honed in on a core reformulation that was able to balance all those different areas, keep the driver spin where it was, give us that boost in iron and wedge spin that we were looking for. But then the added benefit was we're constantly working with the ball plants and operations to understand that relationship and understand their capabilities as well. And we saw opportunity during this reformulation process to actually build in more speed with the core as well. So even though it wasn't in the North Star, one of the kind of fortunate outcomes from our work with in the product development cycle and with the plants was we're able to deliver the more spin and more spin with irons and wedges with this core reformulation, but also more speed.
Ja, vad börjar man egentligen när en ny version av den här bollen ska tas fram? Hur stakar man ut färdriktningen för en ny generation av Pro V1?
Every part of our process starts with tour, and it starts with golfers. And so we have a team dedicated to listening to what golfers need, walking out and saying and observing what's working and maybe what is an opportunity with current Pro V1 and Pro V1X. That team then comes back to the broader research and development group and says, okay, hey, I think we've got a couple of opportunities. And in the case of the new Pro V1 and Pro V1X, it was, gosh, it would be great if we had a little more iron spin and a little more wedge spin. And so maybe you might go into the details of more of what that looks like, because that's very high level of our process.
Yeah, so for us, it's about getting that initial direction. And then once we have that initial direction, we can let our engineers loose and let them go. And golf ball R&D is specifically set up so we can attack it from any different angle that we need to. We have a research team who's working on long-term projects, but we have people who are dedicated to just the core and just the casing layer and just the covers and just the paint and just the aerodynamics. So we're covering every possible path that we might need to go down. And then when the development engineer gets the kind of the high level direction on what Pro V1 and Pro V1X want to be in the next generation, they can take all of these tools they have available to them and use them to make a multitude of combinations and permutations of prototypes that we know somewhere in this mix is going to be the next best version that's going to achieve all of our goals. And then it's just a process of testing and getting feedback from players and feedback from robots to really narrow down what is the absolute best version of that product.
Pro V1 är ju en tredelsboll medan Pro V1 X baseras på en fyrdelskonstruktion. Ändå så undrar man ju, har man tittat närmare på att implementera fler lager i konstruktionen under åren och skulle detta vara en möjlighet?
It's a good question. So in R&D we've kind of made everything. We've gone up to 8-piece golf balls within development, I think, is I think the highest I've ever seen. But what it comes down to is we're going to use all the tools that we have available to us to deliver the performance golfers are asking for. And it's one of the reasons we still make a dual core. We're the only major manufacturer that still has a dual core product. And for us, it's because we see it as a critical tool in our toolbox to deliver the performance needed for Pro V1X. Dual core, we mentioned gradient earlier. Dual core has that unique ability by making two separate materials. You can really decouple that material hardness between that inner core and that outer core, and that helps to drive gradient. So with a high compression product like Pro V1X, we're able to use that compression to help us with spin and speed in other areas, but we're able to keep that dual core in place to drive spin down with the driver to maintain distance. So the number of layers isn't really as important as what you do with them and what you're really trying to deliver. Like Pro V1 is a 3-piece ball and Pro V1X is a 4-piece ball. They're that way intentionally because we're trying to make those products different and we're trying to deliver different performance attributes, and they're just one of the tools that we use to get there.
Pro V1s historia sträcker sig nu alltså 25 år bakåt i tiden. Finns det några tekniska milstolpar som vi kanske bör ringa in extra tydligt från det år som har passerat?
I think the one element that golfers need to pay more attention to is the consistency, ball after ball after ball. And the greatest improvement from 25 years ago to this generation is every single element of that golf ball, from the core to the casing layer to the cover to the aerodynamics, every bit of that golf ball has gotten more consistent over 25 years. So what you may not notice in one given shot will be noticed over the long term. And that's what we see here at the Titleist Performance Center is in our robot testing, we are significantly more consistent and the different outcomes are much narrower. It's much more of a high performance, high quality, consistent golf ball because every single facet has just simply gotten better over 25 years.
Avslutningsvis kunde jag inte låta bli att kolla av vilka modeller av Pro V1 har hamnat i deras egna bagar och hur gynnar de deras eget spel rent prestandamässigt?
Good question. I am a Pro V1 player. I'm an ex-baseball player, so I tend to be pretty steep and kind of cut across the ball with my below average swing. But that means that I have no problem generating spin. So I like having the lower flight. So not only do I like the look of Pro V1 with its lower spin, lower flight, it's also actually better for my game. So both of those things line up pretty well for me.
I'm a Pro V1X left dash player. So somewhat similarly, I generate too much spin to play a Pro V1 or Pro V1X. I struggle to hold greens, and so I focus on that iron play. But I do like the high flight, and the high flight really benefits my game. So when I look at my needs, I need high flight, I want high flight, but I need to create lower spinning shots. Pro V1X left dash fits perfectly for that need.